laughable court stories. Let's get our friend barrister and also known as the Rasta Rabbi, and obviously sporting his semi-rapper look tonight as well. Please welcome the trumpeter, Alan Peisner.
Alan had a win. Oops, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on Planet Green Trees, the best medical marijuana radio, internet radio, and TV show. It's been on the air for 10 years, sponsored by Komorn Law, which is the best medical marijuana firm in the state, as well as handling related issues like licensing and criminal defense, and now even insurance matters. I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here, and I think you did a great introduction for Allie. I like the better part about the Supreme Court seat that she'll have in the future. Yeah. And also, Steve, I got to compliment you on your outfit. You look like you're in the Navy. Those look like dress whites. I mean, you just need some stripes across the top here to make it complete.
Well, the Navy look is not what I was going for. I mean, of all the branches of service,
we've had a battle of
they're like last.
We've had a service discussion all.
We did today
all
too.
The last couple of weeks and stuff. You don't realize, Alan, but in person here, he's showing off his sponsorship from Adidas in the tracksuit that they have paid for him to wear. We lost the contract. He wasn't going to be sponsored by Planet Green Trees swag, but instead he went for the
went for Adidas. Their money was bigger.
There you go.
With Adidas, apparently.
Oh, and what do you know? Joining us in his
there he is, Jeff.
Lone Ranger spirit, our dear friend Jeffrey Frazier. Jeff, welcome. Perfect timing. Again, the lawyer being
he's silenced.
Okay.
But
Jeff,
I would like to
unmute yourself.
I would like to say Alan had a win for us today out of Komorn Law.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Did we rock that?
Yeah, he did. Absolutely.
Paul was pretty. All right, listen, we'll talk about
And he sorted out the mess that went along with it. So Alan is my hero today.
All right, good. He's a hero to all.
Yep.
Here's some of the funny stories. I'm glad Jeff and Alan are here, and for everyone else that cares. So there's a lot of craziness that's going on in this case that we have in St. Clair County. What's weird to me is that the origin date, or the date of the incident, is a 2013 October, of all things. And who would have thought that it was of significance or a priority of the state of Michigan, or St. Clair County for that matter, to continue to prosecute a marijuana case. But sure enough, here we are.
I know some residents up there, and they're not too happy about it right now when I'm telling them about this case.
They should let their government officials know.
I don't think their government officials care.
But this is what was interesting. So we've had this situation where we were there last week, Alan and Jeff, and I brought my investigator, Steve Miller, and I wanted him to sit in the courtroom so he could take notes and
assist
with the case. Because in every drug prosecution I've ever been involved in defending, the prosecutor always has an officer in charge, quote unquote. And in fact, last week, when there was no officer in charge, there are no witness to sit next to the prosecutor argued vehemently that Steve Miller should not be allowed to sit at our table with us if he might testify at trial.
Take your lunch,
because he's not. Defense attorneys cannot have an OIC.
Yeah, defense attorneys can't have an OIC. So then this week around, and we're getting back at it, and there's like 12 drug task force guys that are there, and we call who we're gonna, we decided who's gonna be called and when, kind of, and most of them leave to be on call, and one of the witnesses takes a stand, and sure enough, over to the prosecutor's table is one of the detectives, who all of a sudden is now going to be the officer in charge of the case. So I'm like, wait a second. Last week they were arguing that we don't get an officer in charge. Now they want one. If he's got to go, then my guy's going to stay. And to my surprise, and you got to understand that the prosecutors argue, well, there's a statute that allows us to have the officer in charge stay at the table. There's no statute that allows the defense attorney to do this, blah, 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 blah. And the judge says, well, just to be fair, we're gonna let Mr. Miller stay in the courtroom if they're gonna have the
OIC.
If they're gonna have the OIC, and the prosecutor says, well, if that's gonna be the case, then I'm gonna have my OIC out in the hallway.
Yeah. Does not want me in that.
So they were like, they stated, and the OIC was their lieutenant of the entire drug task force. So this is the way I look at it: their queen on the table. they took off the board so they could get Steve out of the courtroom. Like his power and influence was insane today. Because I think the prosecutor knows that Steve's in the military branch.
Yeah.
Of
the superior of the forces, the Air Force.
The Air Force. So we've had that thing going on all day. Anyways, that was just the kind of.
But yeah, I felt important today. Like, you're right. He took his queen out, so you wouldn't have your queen.
It was a weird. Yeah, it wasn't like
it's kind of weird that I'm referring to myself as a queen.
Well,
Queen.
In the context of chess,
Very weird.
it wouldn't be the king, and it certainly wouldn't be a pawn or a rook.
Right. No, the king's worthless. In that
right.
game.
So it's the queen. Right. So
queen is powerful, as I was today. Apparently,
that's right.
as the
That's
OIC
right.
on the defense squad.
I see.
OIC. He does not like me in that courtroom. And then the first day last week, I went to go pick my spot for social distancing, and he was like, "That's a little too close for you to be sitting to me, as far as I can tell."
Goodness.
He does not like me.
Wow.
He does not like me. Maybe he's from up there. Maybe I beat him up as a kid or something.
no, he's different age. Listen, he may not like you, but he
He
did.
saw his time in police academy.
Yeah, it's so there was another issue that came up that I thought it important. This officer in charge rule was kind of interesting, Alan. I was curious to know what your thoughts. Jeff's disappeared.
Because Allie found nothing.
There was another on the point kind of weird issue that came up as well, which is kind of interesting because even after this entire process of arguing, I want my officer in charge here, I want my officer in charge here, while the same officer then gets called to testify, and I say, "You're the officer in charge." He's like, "Nope, not me,
he's
not me, same guy."
Not me.
And,
it's the other guy who when he testified said that this guy was the OIC.
But then we didn't know of this distinction. There's an officer in charge, and there's an officer, supervisor officer in charge.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
A
okay.
soik.
Yeah, so
We need to figure out a way to put an N between the I and C,
yes.
because then it would be an oink.
So we had an interesting situation, and we got to the bottom in the core of what was happening in a really remarkable way today. I felt like every part of their scheming and planning to be as nefarious and evil as they possibly could was revealed today. All of their methods of what they do and how they do it, their thinking, and how they then act on it, and then have absolutely no accountability or responsibility after they act on it.
And instead of arresting people, there's now an investigative detainment, Jim.
Yeah, that's a term that came up today that I've never heard of.
It doesn't exist. There's no such thing that's called being arrested.
We've heard of this thing called the Terry stop, which is a brief on the street encounter between a police officer. It's a one step above, and the detention is because they're suspicious of a weapon of some kind. To pat them down for their own safety, it's got to be brief and fast, right? It's the least intrusive of the various methods. But today we learned of a new term, Jeff. I wonder where we find this in the course of Fourth Amendment jurisprudence. But it involved an investigative detainment, and detainment being defined by placing you in the back of a police car and taking you to the police station and putting you in a jail cell while they try to get some evidence to arrest you. This is what we learned is a investigative detention.
Yes.
That's
I've never heard of it.
Seizure of some sort, no?
It's.
I mean, I sat there and Googled it and went on Westlaw and also the MSP's website, and the only thing that I could find as far as investigative detentions was comparative to Terry stops.
Yeah.
Now, what did the prosecutor say about this investigative detention?
The
Did he
prosecutor.
say it's okay?
The prosecutor.
Terry's.
Jeff, I would even argue that any prosecutor who knows the law that hears that, as Steve is kind of intimating, to argue any justification for that kind of excuse as a basis to do what they did is unethical.
Because that was never taught in any school I ever went to, or any legal update, or anything else about an investigative detention.
Well, if it's a Terry stop, then it requires reasonable suspicion, but that's not what they did. They arrested this guy. If they put him in the back of a car and held his ass down to the police station,
That's
that
right.
requires cause.
That's right.
Can't just do that.
Right.
Well, didn't they also say the reason they arrested him was for a delivery, but then they had no evidence or nothing to say for any deliveries that they saw at all?
Well, no, they needed to detain him and interview him so that they could get probable cause to arrest him.
Here's something that was
That's
kind of
it,
interesting.
Jim.
I said
You
to
got
the
it.
officer, if I didn't say this, it wouldn't make any sense. But who would know that in 2020 these would be questions that you would ask a police officer? But I asked the officer, I said, well, you were aware that before this detainment or whatever, that they had medical marijuana cards, and the amount of marijuana you said was in the trunk was less than the amount they're allowed to have, right? Yeah, but I don't know where they were taking it. I said, okay, well, you would agree that being a caregiver, one of the things they're allowed to do is possess with the intent to deliver. I don't know about that, Mr. Komorn. I go, that's a debate? That's a debate? He goes, the laws back then were so confused. I go, they were not
No,
confusing.
they were not.
And then let me say it this way. Would you agree that if anything, a patient caregiver can engage in the medical use of marijuana? Yes, I would agree with that. Would you agree then that the definition of the medical use of marijuana involves the cultivating, manufacturing, transporting, possession with intent, delivery, etc.? Oh, I don't know what the definition is exactly. Okay, but by not knowing it, how can you then determine if a person's in compliance or not? Well, Mr. Komorn, some of these cases, it appears on the surface or the face of it that they're in compliance. But unless we can really get in there and figure it out, they're not, then you don't know if they're in compliance or not, okay? I mean, seriously, this is the conversation that's taking place.
It's like Schrodinger's bag of weed.
Well, he didn't even know the definition of, was it usable marijuana or just marijuana in general?
He didn't know the definition of the medical use, which is what people are immunized from in that definition.
That's just scary because they're the ones that are supposed to be enforcing the law and they don't even know the law. I mean, how can you necessarily enforce it if you don't even know it?
Allie, they have qualified immunity. They don't need to.
Ellie, this is why none of the files that are 6, 7, 8, 10, 4 years old that's why they haven't been removed to storage yet, because the story to be told is in every single one of those cases when the question is asked of law enforcement. Have you ever read the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act? Time and time again, they would say the whole thing. No. And I would say, well, how can my clients expect to get any kind of protections under the act that they're relying on if you've never read it? And this is why they are protesting in the streets, because only in Mars or some other planet, some illogical place that things are upside down and backwards, a reverse alternate universe, could something like this be acceptable? But it goes on every single day.
Well, the thing is the Medical Marijuana Act, when you print it out, it's only maybe between 15 and 20 pages. It's really not that long.
That's a lot of reading for cops.
Well, that's scary.
Because we're not like you attorneys. We don't like to read. We like people. We're like
bulletins.
We're kind of like President Trump. We like somebody to come in and report the updates to us and read them to us so we don't have to read them.
And you can select from that what you want to enforce and what you don't want to enforce. Okay, that's fair.
Pick and choose. It's better that way.
That's how it goes.
Keeps it
Bulletins,
spicy.
like Michigan State Police bulletins are better, right?
So I, as the sergeant, often got to read them to the guys.
That's good.
When you get some command status, you do some reading.
So here's another interesting factor.
I have a question though. If you just read the updates, then you really don't even know what's truly going on. You just know updates from it.
We had no idea what was
How do
going
you base
on.
the updates from anything to know what's going on?
No, you just.
Inspector will tell you.
Yeah. I'll tell you what was interesting, Jeff. This terrible case that came out in the middle of all the medical marijuana panache is Anthony Brown, People versus Anthony Brown. Ellen Pisner, you know what I'm talking about? It's a terrible search warrant case where the affidavits, assertions, or vehemence of probable cause involved the exact things that stated authorized the patient or caregiver to engage in, such as high electric bills, snow melted roof, smell of marijuana, trash plug, etc. All those things led up to the idea that the probable cause of a crime being committed that justified a warrant. I think part of the fact is that it's Schedule 1, and even if it was for medical purposes, the logic and reasoning within the opinion relied upon the privacy of the registration. The officers don't have access to it, nor could they find out. However, in a footnote in that case, they said, if the law enforcement community knows that there is a medical marijuana grow and that it's in compliance, then that must be included in the affidavit for a search warrant, because then no probable cause would exist, as the footnote goes. We happen to be in the middle of that exact case. And if you think about it, now this is a bad case, and the exception to this case application in its worst form and interpretation would be if the law enforcement agents know there is a compliant medical marijuana grow at the place that they execute the search warrants. And I think it would even impact, obviously, the arrest. So put aside the concept of the police needing to know of the compliance, because that's present in this case, but by knowing that they're medical marijuana patients or caregivers at the time of this traffic stop and arresting them anyways for things that we're not even sure of, it creates and focuses a lot of the attention on not just your traditional issues of Fourth Amendment warrantless arrests, but also immunity from arrest, an issue in the MMA that has never been litigated, recognized, made a precedent. It's as if it doesn't exist in the law. And it starts out with,
There is none.
a patient is protected from arrest, first word, comma, prosecution, or penalty of any kind, and yet arrests still take place in
And
the...
they went up after the law was passed.
Yes. But, Jeff, do you know what I'm saying? We've talked about this a lot. Obviously, the arraignment would be, or the arraignment, the swear to would be the time and place that they do this. But I'm saying that...
It should be on the street where they do this. It should be on the street where that immunity is recognized, and it should never be brought before the court to analyze your immunity.
But
the law is the law, and the cops should have been trained to recognize that immunity at the street level and be done with it.
They were trained. Bill Schuette went around and helped to train them.
You're right, 100% right. And if they don't, it should be addressed at or before arraignment, which is the right time. But I've got a question, Michael. Talking about this footnote that says, if law enforcement knows that this person is a medical marijuana patient or caregiver and is in compliance, then they could put that into the warrant. My question is, warrant for what?
Right.
That's the point. That it says exactly that, Jeff. It says something to the effect of, if the law enforcement agents know that they're in compliance, this should be included in the search warrant, because then there's no probable cause.
Search warrant for what?
We're talking about the affidavit for the search warrant.
I know, but if he's in compliance, how are they going to get an affidavit for
Well, the
search?
first part of that footnote, correct me if I'm wrong, the first part of that footnote says that the officer has no obligation to investigate whether or not the person is in compliance with the Medical Marijuana Act, because marijuana is illegal, and this Medical Marijuana Act just merely provides a limited exception to a few people who are in compliance with the act.
And it's private, and it's a private registry, and they can't get it anyways. That's
Right.
alluded to. However, it says, if the law enforcement agency is aware of the compliance, then this must be included in any affidavit for search warrant, because this
Search
is
warrant
not
for what?
for the home where the compliance takes place, because they say this is not probable cause. Jamie Lowell's joined us. I feel like he's becoming impatient because we haven't acknowledged him. Jamie, we were concerned that you didn't show up, but are very glad that you're here. How are you feeling?
Absolutely.
Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
There he
I'm in
goes.
Lansing. Be here for a couple days doing interviews for a cultivation facility here to help staff that, and also while here, trying to see what I can do about stopping the axe from being opened up in Lame Duck. And had a good meeting tonight about that.
Oh, good.
Senate Bill 1095 or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. We're talking about
Yeah,
1095.
but that's just one thing. That's just one thing. There's like a larger plan, scheme to get into the axe over Lame Duck. So that particular one, probably isn't going to fly, but that's not the only thing we have to worry about.
All right, so let's talk about what you know and what you're referring to. We can return to the insanity of what's taking place in the court system later. But one of the topics on our list is Senate Bill 1095, which is a bill to amend the MRTMA, and I had some comments and discussions about that. But Jamie, you're referring to something else. I think you're referring to the concerns or the rumors, or maybe you know more than rumors and know that some kind of bills are pending out there. Obviously, you're in Lansing for that reason. Please share with us what you know about any bills to amend the MMMA or other.
Well, yeah, well, all I know is that there's some discussion. In fact, those who watched the interview with the Attorney General that the Cannabis Caucus had a couple of weeks ago, heard them talk about a perceived need to homogenize the cannabis laws, the marijuana laws, and included in that discussion was opening the MMMA
Of course.
and the MRTMA.
We knew that was
And
going to
so-
happen.
Yep.
And the Controlled Substances Act.
Telemedicine while they're at it.
Well, who knows what they do? I mean, the MMMA leaves caregivers and all types of things vulnerable in lame duck session, and that's unacceptable. So, I mean, the issue is there's even talk of doing some things with the MMFLA too. So this one bill was the MRTMA. There's a lot more discussion and a lot more possible action. I don't know of bill names or anything. There's things being worked on right now, if I understand. But I don't care what it says. I don't care what form it's in or what the intention is. It's being pitched as an innocent administrative move, or whatever that's necessary to homogenize the bills and make it easier and less costly and blah, blah, blah. And, all fine. But this process has not been fair or adequate or offer enough time for legitimate scrutiny or input. And it would be left vulnerable in lame duck at a time when we have kind of a corrupted legislature influenced by assholes who could make changes without any public input at that time. So there's not enough time to work on doing anything like opening the acts in this session.
Is there
So
a
the
bill?
board
Is there a bill specifically addressing the MMMA and amending it or trying to do something to it?
I haven't heard of that bill to do it, but I know there's being work on it. I'm very aware of that. That is for sure. And the Attorney General's office said that they were doing that, and we got some of an example of some of that work that was being done on that and on the MRTMA.
What was that example
Yeah.
for the MMMA?
Well, it was an effort to homogenize these things and to
Please
make counts the same and things like that. So the point being, it doesn't, to me, and maybe to others it does, but to me, the specifics don't matter right now at all. Just the mere fact that there's an attempt to open up these acts under these circumstances is enough to step in and want to try to stop it.
Well, we agree. I don't think there's any doubt of it. I heard the source by which you're discussing, and you're not suggesting that there's an actual known bill that's been intended to homogenize.
There's a bill being worked on. Whether or not it's been introduced, I
Fine.
don't think so. Yes, there's no number or whatever being attached to it, but yes, there is something being worked on.
And your confirmation for this tragedy is specifically that we heard the Attorney General speak about it, and that this, in her mind, is a positive thing, and she's going to advocate for the homogenizing.
Right. So what I believe is that they are not pushing it, but that there are people around her, and by the influences that we detect when we talk about other issues concerning cannabis, assuming not necessarily sharing our perspective on everything, and saying that it would be a good idea to
It's a terrible
put all these bills
idea.
together in some way just to make it easier and more efficient. And then, in fact, this was their response to the question, which was my submitted question asked by Rick about her stating in the press a year ago that she still didn't know what the penalty would be if somebody was smoking outside. And they never answered that question, but we heard about how it was very important to homogenize the bills. That was the response. So it's scary because things like, maintaining the position of it being a civil infraction at $100 could be compromised. The excise tax, as it is, as intended, could be compromised. And in fact, there's been a very serious discussion of raising it to 12% and giving the extra 2% worth of revenue to the police. And that's the type of thing that could happen in lame duck.
Well, that's It's ridiculous.
It's horrible.
And the MMA being open, the caregivers obviously are vulnerable. And they've been gunning for the caregivers for ever since the act passed.
After they supplied the entire market for 3 years. By the way, there was a bill that was introduced. There was apparently no support where there was going to be a requirement that all caregivers register. And I know that bill was registered locally or disclose their position. That was later withdrawn. Let's talk for a second.
And was that motivated by the Supreme Court decision? Maybe?
You know what? I don't know what the motivation was, but I don't think we have to look. I mean, whether it was motivated by it or not, I think there's been a motivation to do this from the very beginning. Right?
There's been an attack on it since the beginning. There's no question about that.
So, was it an opportunity provided potentially? Maybe, but I mean, but yes, it's an example of what you were describing, which is there is now, out of nowhere. Who is that person that came up with this idea that, obviously...
It was Jeff Baruch, Baroch, that introduced that caregiver bill.
But do you think he's functioning in a world where this is something that he's talking about with his constituents regularly? Someone came to him, lobbied to him, proposed a bill that he took on and has people look at and tried to act on it. So whether it's the same thing like Jamie was saying, just the discussion that it's happening or that these kind of things are lurking in the background.
Nothing good ever happens in lame duck.
It's not something that is derived from political ideas, I don't think. This is a movement in the backdrop. It's either police-related or it's industry-related. Jamie, let's be honest.
Industry. Do people remember Steve Linder?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's who's driving this, period.
Who's Steve Linder? Who's Steve Linder?
Some people are even calling it Linder's bill. He's been one of the lobbyists who's been around this entire time working for the legalization efforts, representing like the oligopoly type approach or the very limited, market share approach bullshit that
it's streamlined.
that
easy.
we had to defeat several times. He's had his ass kicked by stoners several times over, but now he is involved with this manufacturers organization with Green Peak and all these other assholes and billionaires and stuff like that, like 3 or 4 of the biggest investors into the market. And they're behind this bullshit. It's just too nefarious to be comfortable with.
Is this the same guy that opposed the voter initiative, including language that would remove marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act?
Yeah, he was, I believe, he was at the, he was in opposition, and one of the people in opposition at the time when the Secretary of State was verifying the ballot initiative and stuff like that. He worked for lobbyists for our opposition in a couple different ways and times. And he's been for legalization, but for, for very controlled circumstances where only a few people really get market share. That's been their angle all along. And now the manufacturers group, what's happening, in my opinion, is the not just this kind of stuff, but also trying to create the image that cannabis requires more restrictive system processes, more costly ways of creating the products in order for everything to continue to be safe for everybody and to make it harder and more difficult, more costly for other people to participate in commerce.
Right.
And thus gaining more market share. So that kind of stuff's going on with this group. They're behind it. There's very little to trust here. I guess the department, the MRA, likes the idea of doing some of this stuff, wants it to happen. I can see that from a cost effectiveness, point of view and ease and all that. But that doesn't matter. There's nothing here that's urgent. There's nothing here that's of any cause to try to rush it through the legislature without going through a fair process where everything can be scrutinized and discussed and legitimate stakeholders can be at the table as well.
All right, so let's talk for a second about the Senate Bill 1095. Alan, you had a chance to look at it. I think it was passed around on marijuana law section and as part of the materials prepared by Amanda Joslin of the Elevation Station and the Bunker Brats. And one of the things that I found interesting is my first initial read of it was that this bill, I mean, this part of the bill, this is section, I believe, 3, the definition section of the MRTMA. It has a definition before there's any amendments or, cross-outs or adds that contradict the current definition of what marijuana is. In the statute, section E, marijuana means all parts of the marijuana plant. That isn't the definition of marijuana anymore, and this isn't to amend it, but this is one of those bills that came out that's contradictory at certain points where, contradicting federal law, contradicting the Michigan's Hemp Act, and other executive orders by the governor. But nevertheless, my first read of it was that they are introducing the concept of flowering marijuana plants.
Yep.
Of all the definitions that they've kind of created, they have different definitions of what different types of marijuana, different forms of marijuana. They have a definition of a plant now within the MMA. There's definitions of other things in MMFLA, but in this particular bill, and it seems to be directed towards micro businesses in a way. That's why I immediately thought was the benefactor of this amendment, because by introducing the idea of a flowering marijuana plant, which they say means a male or female marijuana plant that has visible calyces, stigma, or pre-flowers located at the node of the stem or branch, I think it's fair to say that. And they also play around with the micro business, and in the micro business section of this definition section, they insert where there used to be 150 marijuana plants, it's now amended to include 150 flowering marijuana plants. So the idea being that somebody could theoretically have, 4,000 non-flowering.
So nobody disagrees with that, and I know I don't. Within certain contexts at all, that would be good. That would be a nice change to the act. But this particular bill is opposed by the people I was just talking about because it helps to hook them up. Because it helps to hook up alternative types of commerce and what they are invested in.
So this
isn't going to be the only thing that attempts to change the act.
I see. So it's just the door opening, and once we're in,
once the door
let's
opens,
take out the heart, the lungs,
yeah,
and the liver.
Yep. And what passes, and we all know this from experience, is not going to look anything like this. No way. This is a vehicle, and as it moves down the path of becoming law, everybody gets to attach their shit into it.
Or it becomes a negotiation, right?
Yep.
This bill gets pushed forward, and okay, we'll move this one, but we're not going to move that one. Or we'll give you this if you give us that.
If I could back up a little bit on this discussion, and first when we're talking about changing the definition of marijuana, there is a slight problem in the law that we have a definition of marijuana under the Controlled Substance Act, and another definition under the Medical Marijuana Act, and another definition under MRTMA, then another definition under the MMFLA. So what Jamie just said...
And the Hemp Farming Act, if you didn't mention that one.
Okay, my apologies. So what Jamie just mentioned a couple minutes ago about homogenizing these laws, there is some argument that there can be confusion with all these different definitions and all these different laws. And then to bring Jeff in on this, the simplest answer for fixing all this is remove it from Schedule 1.
But even if anything makes sense, that doesn't matter. The risk that it would have under the current circumstances isn't worth it. So there are some things that make sense, and maybe in a subsequent session with a proper work group, with enough people at the table with a legitimate stake to really vet through this stuff and be part of the discussion, that those types of things could be changed. But under these circumstances, there's no possible way that it's worth the risk.
Let me step back for a second and describe what's taking place here. Normal, very calm, soft-spoken, not wordy, Jamie Lowell is, I put him on level 9.75 frantic mode. Look, he's putting his mask on right now. That's how bad it's gotten, okay? He senses that some shit is going to happen, and I trust his judgment of this. And you know what it sounds like, Jamie, if I'm not mistaken, is that despite overwhelming outpouring for the principles associated with the legalizing of marijuana for adults over the age of 21, our elected officials want to take steps that are actually going to prohibit what is essentially already permissive behavior, or scale back what is permissive behavior to being prohibited. That's the direction. That is the direction that our leadership is going to take us. And you could say that it's the shitty legislatures all day long, but in order for a law to get passed in the state of Michigan, whether it's via lame schmuck, is the governor has to sign it. And oftentimes for certain bills dealing with criminality, allegation of criminality, permissive behavior versus illegal or criminal behavior, they're going to rely upon the Attorney General and take positions on this. So is it fair to say, Jamie, that if any of these things occur, it is the fault of the existing administration for letting it happen? Confirm or deny that?
Well, if they support it, that makes it a lot easier for everything to go forward, and that in part is what's being counted on. So there's something to be said for that. We are going to request that the Attorney General not be involved in this anymore and help us to get a proper work group set up for next session. Whether or not they'll do any good, I don't know, but we're going to put on record that we don't appreciate this participation in this and that it was not being done fairly, and we ask that they quit participating in it, but we'll see what happens with that.
Not that my opinion or suggestions matter, but may I offer and suggest that the idea that any kind of concern would exist at this time about these things happening is enough.
Well, I agree.
Okay, that's enough to say it is not negotiable that not just you don't support it, but you make sure it doesn't happen. That the MMA is off limits. And if anyone, if for some reason there is any logic, or the logic that's being used to consider removing any of the protections, permissive behavior of the MMA, can I ask this question? Does anyone know what's happened the last 3 years? Does anybody know that their program that they set up was doomed from the beginning, and we would have been in a state of emergency by their use of their own words, and only because of caregivers were they able to survive? Are they that blind, Jamie, that the next step would be, oh yeah, now we're done with you, we're just gonna...
They're not blind, they just don't care.
Well, the point...
I know, it really sucks, like in Oklahoma, like the small farmer, even if they grow in their own basement, can get a license and bring product to market as long as it passes the standards, which aren't as nearly as strict as ours. They can bring it to market. And that's helped out, just like the caregivers' involvement not only saved everything, but it also helps out in other ways. It keeps everything floating, keeps a diversity of some good cannabis in the market, and it's better for everybody.
Why not?
And it draws people out of their concerns for diversion or whatever, or the gray market, as it's been described. It's an invitation to do that. The Michigan's resolved this by offering up a 100-plant Class A grow under the recreational law, which sounds good, but no cities are just offering these up.
So,
if a caregiver wanted to start paying taxes and wanted to be directed and be supervised and have inspections, where are they going to go? Where's the inventory for that?
well, it worked, and there's a basis for it. There's another model in another state where it works. So if we're talking about making changes to the act, let's look at shit like this that makes sense, and not this non-emergency, very questionable stuff that's being proposed.
There can be
And
no
if we're opening up the MMA, let's look at like the lack of reasonable or functional interpretations that became the basis for how it gets viewed. Like, you grow 72 plants, but if you have more than 15 ounces at any point, even where you grew the plants and harvested it, then you're subject to criminal prosecution. That's not a functional interpretation of that. And we got more specific in the MRTMA, about being able to keep what you harvest, and then when you're out and about, you're limited to a certain amount, which is what was the intention there. And the only interpretation that makes it a functional interpretation is to look at it like that. 72 plants and 15 ounces is pretty straightforward. That does not make sense. It makes sense that be the amount while the person is out and about. So stuff like that can be looked at. And there's many of those.
You know, you reminded me of something which is a point of contention, which is that, as we've been told, and I would say disappointed, that the solutions, as if they're needed, are legislative, and that our Attorney General's position it would to seek the answers for whether or not smoking in public is a civil infraction, or even the concept of if a person in the state of Michigan could be charged with a felony for involving, having marijuana, a certain amount of marijuana. And I can tell to you, and if anyone doesn't know this,
It's not what the law says. It's not what the law says.
Listen to me. It's 2020. On Monday, I have a probable cause conference on a 7-year felony marijuana case. That's first day up for probable cause conference, meaning they were arraigned within 14 days. And they're proceeding with a 7-year marijuana felony. Okay? How much marijuana does somebody have to get a
It's not
7-year felony?
not possible under MRTMA unless it was willful, habitual, and for a commercial purpose or involved violence. And the fact that these agencies think that they can charge people with felonies is complete bullshit. The law is very specific.
I even think that it's not illegal to possess with intent to deliver, even, because somebody could do that.
Yeah, without remuneration, all day long. And still you couldn't be charged with a felony.
This would be a good point for the Attorney General maybe to step in
Yeah.
and provide some
But you understand,
advice to
who-
police
who would
departments
have
and
thought-
prosecution.
Who would have thought this interpretation would need to take place? But instead, we are being told that the solution is through the legislature. Now, Jamie, you brought up an important point. This has kind of got me talking about this. When you read the law that of who's allowed into the enclosed lock facility in Section 4, it says something to the effect of a caregiver, a patient, and a caregiver, not the caregiver. You know, and there's all this mishmash of who can go in there. But unequivocally, they're referring to at least 2 people that can go in there. Now, there's one case on point, kind of on point on this, which was the Ballsma case, which really dealt with the not having more plants being over your volume limitation in conjunction with the number of cards you have. It doesn't say accessible by no one other than, who the grower is or whatever. And this is what has become, or even having someone accessibility to that has become the interpretation by law enforcement. Now nobody would have ever thought that was the circumstance. It's impossible to read Section 4 and not see that the accessibility into the enclosed lock facility encompasses and contemplates 2 different individuals, patient and a caregiver, okay? But if you ask law enforcement today, they would tell you, no. There's only one person and nobody else can have access. Our case out there in joke land, we didn't even get into the key. The key got into the room. Oh my goodness.
That is an issue in this case.
Okay, this is the nonsense that's taking place. Now,
going on.
Now, I will tell you that when I read the law in 2009, 2010, and I think Ballsman probably came out in 2012, you would not be able to tell. It would be impossible to draw a legal conclusion that only one person would be allowed in that room. And no one believed that was the case. But now, when we talk about it, it has been beaten into and people's lives have been destroyed over this interpretation. How did we get here? The law still doesn't say anything different than the way I'm interpreting it. This is just the protocol and their interpretation. This came about because the Attorney General's office let it go on and proffered opinions and thoughts that allowed it to go on. And this is now our folklore, still to this day, despite not one scintilla of legal support for it anywhere. And we're defending this somewhere out in joke land, as I said right now. So to suggest that the solution is to go to the legislature, or the attorney general is quote unquote impotent and has no authority to enforce, implement, and effectuate the interpretation of this particular law which he supports,
It's a cop-out.
is not something that one was ever expected from her. Two, it doesn't seem to be a reality when we know that Bill Schuette,
Oh, he had a
He
new
wasn't-
opinion every week.
and he effectuated the interpretation of it. An interview with him where he's talking about, well, yeah, but then the courts had to figure it out. So the point
Yeah, it's
being,
getting disturbing. We elect people, Dana included, to protect what we achieved, not to participate in peeling it back and misinterpreting it. And that is concerning and disappointing, to say the least.
and let's not be mistaken either, as much as I have many clients who are in the quote-unquote industry. I don't know if they are any of the people that I'm going to be referring to, because there's certainly a certain certainly within the cannabis industry you have different participants, Jimmy. Is that a fair statement? You have some of these larger finance groups that have multiple licenses, and as they obtain retail licenses, they're also getting 2 or 3 grow licenses in the same town. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, yeah, the group that we were just discussing that has this manufacturers association.
Okay, but within the cannabis industry group, you have a divide between, what are some mom and pa decently financed groups that are in their own kind of category, versus the other better financed and
Corporate backed.
corporate backed
If
and
you will.
Canadian.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I don't know what their positions they're taking. I'd be interested. Do you think that Robin's group is going to be supporting the opening of the act? Because it's those kind of support that we have seen has impact on the legislatures, allows them to at least hang their hat. Right?
Well, I don't know what Robin's group is officially going to say in response to this, but I would have a hard time believing that they don't understand the bigger picture risk that we are describing right here. A lot of those people were involved in the same process as we were and have dealt with these people as we have over the years. And I think that they could at least point out that this process has not been fair or adequate in order to, make these changes in laws at this time, and that this should go into next session if it's going to be discussed at all, and there should be a lot more people involved and a lot more things discussed.
Well, their group wasn't advocating that caregivers, the extension of caregivers supply to the market be extended. I don't think that's something that they were lobbying for at any point in time. It wouldn't be surprising, Jamie, let's be honest, if they're...
No, I don't think that they were lobbying for that at all. And I know that there are some individual members of that organization that would not mind if that was the case at all, and would support that concept. But I don't think they were weighing in on that. I think that's something that's a little bit too varied amongst that group to be able to take a single position on. But I think on this particular case, though, the idea of them opening up the act, there not being a proper process in place, there's no urgency going on, the being skeptical of Linder and this manufacturing association, I think that they might have that view, although they'll have to officially make whatever kind of statement they make once they see once they're able to review whatever might be being proposed.
Although, like Michael said, the governor's got to sign it at the end of it all, if it all goes through. Will she sign it or not?
She's been warming up with these.
With their
things.
executive orders.
Question.
Jamie, hold on.
Question. Does the governor have to sign it? Because if they get they need a 3/4 majority to amend the
asked that
medical
today.
marijuana.
Right,
So
and only
it's
66% needed to overturn the governor, and I asked about that today, and yes, she can veto it, but they could also then convene on another vote and then overrule it, I guess, but I think she can do it.
Right.
Started with.
But if they can get a 3/4 majority to amend the Medical Marijuana Act, the veto's in effect meaningless.
Well, it's meaningful unless they convene again to do another vote, which they might go, well, the governor doesn't want us to do this, let's not do it. That might have an effect. So I guess that it would be meaningful if that had an effect. Whether or not it will, if they're so intent on it, they would get back together to vote again. I don't know. But I would hope that none of it ever gets this far. I really do. And it's going to take some work, but I think that's possible.
I don't want to point fingers. Pointing fingers is not good for anyone. Gets us nowhere, right, Jamie? Just kidding. It's like a South Park joke. But I would say that this cannabis industry that we're speaking of, while obviously there seems to be this, I mean, we can understand why both sides of their support would be warranted, right? You've got the licensed operators that want their competitive advantage to be recognized and realized in a financial method, and then there may be some that don't care. They don't, their license is superior to the caregiver. If everyone's doing their thing, then there's enough room to play ball in the sand, or enough, room in the sandbox, so to speak. But I want to say that is there a where would we place the marker on this moral compass of an industry that is only in existence now because of the sacrifice of the caregivers, right? I mean, if at the end of the day they would not be able to have an opinion about the direction of the market but for the caregivers. So I guess everyone's got their beliefs, and I think this is always the problem with the regulated industry and how people sign on with the tax and regulators. They don't fully understand the entirety of the issues. They really know nothing about cannabis, yet they're the ones making the rules and
so in
regulations.
order to keep the caregivers on, I mean, unless you kept emergency rules going, there would have to be a change in the law. And so if we're going to discuss opening the law,
I'm not saying that, Jimmy. I'm saying though, this industry, anyone that's in this industry is only in this industry because of over the last 3 years, based on the emergency rules, and to avoid the state of emergency so patients couldn't get their cannabis, they allowed caregivers to supply the market. That is a significant fact in Michigan's marijuana history. And to ignore that and be in the industry or being within the industry and somehow trying to vitiate or get into those general protections. I'm not talking about them supplying the market. I'm saying just being caregivers. That is, I think, beyond the pale. Alan Pizer, are you had a final thought? Although Jim's got his super long roach clip in my face. Go ahead. Alan, what were your comments?
Wrap it up.
I defer to Jim.
Wrap it up.
Well, okay.
Wrap up.
This is what we're saying right here. We're wrapping it
All
up.
right, let's take a quick break,
Taking
and we
a break.
will.
Where the stand clock comes in, right?
Wait, where's that?
What?
Oh. Yeah, where's the... Oh, there it is.
Oh,
We got
When we come back, we will be doing our
Minute
timely
class.
7-minute
Put on the
segments
sand clock.
that's good.
as the world turns. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Planet Green
the
Tree.
days of our life.
The Planet Green Tree Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
This is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees. Woo! It's windy out here. One thing I learned about Traverse City is that it's not only famous for its cherries, but also for its dispensaries. Thank you for watching. This is the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees TV.
And now I'm back on it. What's this? In the face of injustice, we stand proud and tall. Police misconduct drives us up the wall. We come in all shapes and sizes, fighting to be free. Jack-booted thuggery serves to charge our battery. We are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling, cause you smoke the little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass. We do all the hard work at attention all the time. We may be rigid, but our justice is sublime. We vibrate with intensity, electric in our cause. When the cops don't have a warrant and they violate our laws, we are the dildos for justice, and we are here for you. When you just don't have the juice to do what you must do, and when the police come calling cause you smoke the little grass, grab a dildo for justice and shove us up their ass.
Nice.
adventure, guys.
I'm gonna tuck my feet on.
Hi, this is retired Sergeant Steve Miller, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
It's ugly, you do.
We may have to babysit.
Boom!
See?
All right,
We're
we
back.
are back. Thanks for staying with us.
I'll tell you what, they're coming out. They're finding the real fact is that even a little bit helps.
Yeah.
You know? Even
We are
things-
back.
Better than nothing.
Yes.
We're live.
Yes. How could we be? How could anyone think otherwise? You know? Oh, it's not 100% effective, so don't wear a bandana. Well,
When I was in court,
Now he's
I
got
don't
his
think- I
damn
don't
I
think-
won't
class.
wear a condom while I'm at it.
Hey.
You know? So
We're Justin. Go.
Hold on.
when I was in court this morning, they were letting people in one at a time. The officer lets one person in, he takes your temperature, screens you, and
Whatever. By the way, I was
keeps everybody else waiting outside.
I was going with the bandana look for a little while, and then I sent a picture to my family about it. And then my sister from New York commented that bandanas are the least effective of all the masks. She like threw one of those. Like, since I thought you're the grammar police as an editor. Why when did you become the mask police? It was funny.
well, I have two. I have yellow and blue.
You go with both at the same time, or it just depends what crowd you're around?
It depends where I'm going. I
Actually,
stay outdoors as much as possible. This is kind of outdoor. Walking on the street, mask are just fine.
Jeff,
You're walking.
you don't know what it's like to be in court with a mask, and I want to tell you, this has been my play, and it's actually been very helpful because there's times when I want to get up and scream at the top of my lungs, and instead what I've been just doing is like this.
Oh.
Can you see it? And I would just literally, like this. I just go like, just so I don't respond. You know, just so like I don't have to talk. I've done it a couple times, but it's I'm in favor of it now. I like to wear it all the time, and you know, kind of serves as like an ascot. Also, kind of spices up your outfit a little. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just.
Yeah, ascot is the new look.
It does.
So to along these lines, to let people know, we had a positive COVID employee at our East Tower store, the Botanical Company.
Uh-oh.
Got word Sunday night. We followed all protocol and did everything as we were supposed to, and were not mandated to shut down or do anything by the health department, but we voluntarily shut down and had the place deep cleaned and had everybody on the crew tested, and just opened back up today after everybody got negative tests and everything was gone over and stuff like that.
Where are you? Where are you, and how are you getting so much done while you're on this radio show? Because I can usually only do one thing at a time, especially when I'm talking to somebody. You seem to have walked from 4 different continents by now. What are you doing over there?
I'm in the parking lot of the Hyatt Hotel in Lansing.
Okay. All right, good.
Committing a
Smoking
misdemeanor.
purple shaving.
Committing a misdemeanor as we speak.
It's a civil infraction, in my opinion.
Well,
I
depending
agree.
on what they came out of the PAM conference yet, nobody seems to really know. Other than they just really want to keep looking for ways to enforce this thing.
Remember also, Jamie believed that a caregiver could supply to more than 5 patients.
He did. He did believe that.
I think so.
I still kind of believe that.
Under Section 8, you could.
It's a nice thought.
If you can make the Section 8 proofs.
I would agree with all of that, Alan, except this case overhauled has somehow thwarted that at times. Even though it's from, even though I can't even. It's just
the Section 8 proofs can be.
By the way, we're live on Facebook.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to let you know.
No, we're live.
We're not doing anything.
We're
not doing
live.
wrong, and in fact,
We've been live.
track of our time.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah.
Surprise!
taking a live break.
That's because Justin muted us, so you missed us coming back. And I had a discussion with Justin, and you don't want to understand what his response was. It was
Jim
quite
has
disgusting.
been all over Justin lately.
Got to keep him in line.
They're getting the behind-the-scenes break sessions for Planet Green Trees.
Oh no, we were just going with the flow. That's good. Yeah.
Does anybody else have the song "You Got a Friend in Me" ringing in their head anywhere?
Yeah, you might as well. You got a friend.
Yeah, that
in
one.
me.
Exactly. Anybody else have that going on? Because it's.
There's a guy and his young daughter on YouTube that do a version of that. That's
the exact
yeah,
one.
Michael
Yep.
showed me that the other day.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly, Jimmy. All right. So what do we want to talk about? Canopy growth is headed to $0 without a Biden victory. What does that mean?
That means they're going down unless it goes federally legal and they can trade on
Stock exchange?
Yeah.
I don't think either party or any of the government officials are in any way, shape, or form, even in any of the potential legislation that's going to pass at the federal level, Jamie, none of it makes it any different at the federal level. Like if any bills have a chance to pass, it's like, leave the states alone and let them do their own thing. But it doesn't mean the taxing of it won't be different, right? And as things stand right now, the extra tax revenue that penalizes mostly the retailers, what's the motivation for them to stop or change that right now? What would be the trade-off? What would be the trade-off in dollars and cents?
doing the right thing.
We're talking about a government. We're talking about a government.
Strive to do.
Yeah.
They do?
All right. That must be like your brain waves must have connected into some kind of Lansing way of living and the perceptions of things up there because, and that would be the greenest of all bubbles I think you could be in, green Michigan State, Lansing. But
it used to be pretty green in Lansing in the good old days.
I don't even know if it is anymore. I mean, I know that there's limitations.
Urban renewal.
Yeah, but I'm saying the once non-state approved local approval was a thing once in Lansing, right?
The robust marijuana community.
Even because and that would be the
green mall
bubble I think. That was me in reverb.
Oh.
Jamie, but even after the shutdown of the 100 dispensaries in Lansing back in the day, there still was, even leading up to the MMFLA, there was a lot of, if not in Lansing, I don't know if I'm talking city of Lansing, township of, whatever. What was it? City.
Well, there's a lot of activity in the city.
Okay. But nevertheless, they likewise have all opted in, is that right, for medical and recreational?
Yep.
Okay.
And they have social lounges and some other shit too, yeah.
Are there social lounges open right now? Like
Not open yet, not open yet, but some people have just been awarded the local process was the weird process in the whole thing, and only so many were awarded, and they went through a weird point system or something like that. And I think that it was recently decided who's going to get them or something, but they're not open yet.
Well, I for one can't wait until somebody does, so I can go and hang out and see what they're doing.
I'm involved in one, helping to get one open in Kalkaska, and Ryan Basor is a part of it. And there are some others close to us, and hopefully that'll be November-ish I mean, it's hard to say right now. There's a lot of factors, but that's kind of a loose target time right now.
Well, I'll tell you
You are
what.
certainly welcome to come up there.
That would be excellent. The Amanda Report does like to go on the road, and so Botanical Company, and then next to Kalkaska for your lounge review. So.
Yeah, in fact, the social lounge will be conveniently located directly next door to a Botanical Company retail store.
Well, there we go. We got a threefer.
That's convenient. And I also think that's
Road
probably
trip.
the only way that model works is when you're able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's it's tough if you don't have a direct feed for sure. But it can be done if you just got to get creative and have connections.
You got to talk into the mic. Dirty Dan's losing his mind.
Yeah, I bet he is. I am totally not following the guidelines. Not. I'm going rogue today, and Dan's not having it.
No.
Does anybody care about canopy growth? They want to sell on the stock
I
exchange,
don't.
but they can't. Okay.
No, did we?
Very good.
Dan said Biden's on CNN.
Right now, talking about marijuana?
Does he know what he's talking about?
Dan didn't seem.
No, I mean Biden.
Oh, no. I mean, Dan had opined on that. We should ask Dan. Hey, Dan. We'll get Dan in here to give us a rundown on what Joe Biden has to say at CNN. Dan.
You should have impersonations on this show.
We need to ask you a question.
Anyone have a...
My microphone volume.
Jeff, you got to Jeff or Alan or even lawyer Jamie or Jim, Amanda too. The IRS has a marijuana industry page now. Do you know about this? Do you hear about this?
Yeah.
Yes, they're getting ready to smack down.
IRC 280 in the marijuana industry. Businesses that traffic marijuana in contravention of federal or state law are subject to the limitations of Internal Revenue Code 280E. The marijuana industry frequently asks questions linked below address federal tax filing and information report requirements specific to taxpayers in this industry. I mean, let's stop for a second and think about how insane this is. Okay? Here's our federal government telling you that your business is completely illegal and deemed trafficking because of Schedule 1 is just a click away that you can figure out how you can still pay your taxes. Click here.
In fact, they have a cash payment option, Michael.
I see that.
And if you
That's
need to pay
convenient.
with your
That's
stack
good.
of cash because you can't bank,
Right.
but you could still pay your taxes.
Okay.
Just bring in a stack of cash.
The IRS doesn't care.
Here's a good question.
They just want
here's
theirs.
Here's a good question. If the IRS receives a cash payment of greater than $10,000, are they required to file a Form 8300
Nope.
for
Good
themselves?
question.
They'll report themselves.
Come on, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
They can help resolve some litigation that we're involved in. All right, discrimination in the workplace, federal level. I was asked this question. I was on a call with this sitting, be drone out.
It was terrible.
Appreciate that. That's about the best I could expect these days. Just kidding. What was this? Oh yeah. So one of the questions, I was the audience that we were speaking to was the what is it called? It was BIAMA, like brain injury and trauma, something or other. So it was a lot of it was a patient community of people with brain injury trauma. There was a nursing community and a doctor community backdrop. The people that present, there's other lawyers that handle those kind of cases and discuss resources, and they got other people in the medical field. So they've never had any contact with the, any cannabis at all, and it was a topic of interest, and I'm sure we'll get some feedback about it. But amongst the topics I was trying to, discuss that I thought may be an interest to the community, amongst them were the, prohibitions for nurses and other health professionals with having cannabis in their system, and that this is still, being regulated, even if you're a patient, especially if you're a patient, without any contemplation whatsoever. And I suggested that this goes back to the Schedule 1 issue and outlined a number of other things. But and I even referenced the time, that our Attorney General was discussing how she couldn't hire one of her a qualified attorney to be an employee within her office because they tested positive for marijuana, and how she didn't appreciate that, but just policy she's going to look into. And I would suggest that in that situation, if marijuana was not a Schedule 1, we wouldn't even be talking about that. But returning to either the federal workplace or either the state workplace, I told the audience, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but under no circumstances should a state employee who is has a medical marijuana card and are in compliance, could they ever be discriminated at work? You would agree about that?
Do you hear it?
Well, the employer doesn't have to hire them. That's plenty in the Medical Marijuana Act.
State employee, state agency, state employees, patient or caregiver.
Oh, right.
That is true.
On Facebook?
Section 4, Alan. Okay, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
it's not,
the
I don't
state's
know.
still
the
state's still an employer.
Right.
And they're specifically enumerated as the type of employer that cannot deprive someone of employment, a license, or other for their if they're immune from or if they're in compliance.
Well, they can't deny them the license, but they can deny them the employment.
They cannot. The state cannot do this specifically. Private employers can, and that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Here.
I guess two lawyers never agree on anything, and this is a good example.
Well,
because City of Epley, who was that? Epley versus the City of Lansing. That was that case in the Court of Appeals that dealt with that specific issue about employers. She was actually given her job, and then she tested positive for marijuana, and they withdrew the offer.
What was the job?
Board of Power and Water and Light or something in Lansing. It was Epley. It was a case. It was in like 2017. It's in my summaries and it's in the MMA cases.
But I don't know if you've ever. Let me just want to point out to you here this section here that discusses.
We do have a member of the audience was asking if they can ask questions about local cities opting in.
Sure.
There's a public hearing on a new ordinance on the 21st.
What
so, Brandon, if you're listening, go ahead and type in the city, and we'll go ahead and answer that up.
Yeah, the Public Meetings Act would apply. I mean, it should be an Open Meetings Act and should be able to attend and hear what's being said. And hear all discussions on it.
I think we're going to have to go to another break, Tommy.
Yeah, we might need to regroup.
We got to pause. We've had a couple people exit. I'm not sure where they've gone.
So we'll regroup.
We're going to regroup, and then we'll be back. You're listening to Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
This is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, sponsored by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees TV. Relief in Wayne is a very large dispensary, and they have two separate sides.
Although they service medical patients only at the moment, their plan is to open up the other side of the dispensary to allow for adult use or recreational. It'll be really interesting to see how, as the years progress, Relief grows into their space. It's a massive location, and there's a lot of good things that can be done there. If you're interested in having your product or facility reviewed, or even advertising with Planet Green Trees TV, reach out to us. www.planetgreentreestv.com. So folks, Amanda Joslin here with the Amanda Report, signing out. Until next time, stay safe. Hey everyone, it's Amanda Joslin here with the Amanda Report, powered by Komorn Law and aired on Planet Green Trees TV. Alright, so picture this if you will. You go to your local provisioning center or you just hook up with your caregiver and you have a nice big old sack of Mary Jane. So you're very excited, you get home, you get it all out, start getting in there, getting your hands dirty. And then what you do is you're left with the stem. So today we're going to talk about what do we do with all of those leftover stems. Sticks and stems are inevitable. You can have a beautiful bag of ganja and you're still going to be left with some stems. So every part of the cannabis plant can be used for something. That's why it's such a great little gift to us all. And so there are three main uses that we can collect and use stems for later. The first reason would be to make it into some canna butter. The second reason is we could use it to infuse into some topicals. And then the last would be some cannabis tea. You should absolutely not smoke your stems. Not only will it not get you high, but also, you guys, it's going to give you a monster headache, and it's probably going to tear up your throat and make you cough a great deal. So, can you smoke stems? I guess you could, but please don't. So the name of the game is to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So start saving those stems. What kinds of things have you done with your stems? Give us a comment below. This is Amanda Joslin with the Amanda Report, powered by Komorn Law, aired on Planet Green Trees, signing out.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
Hi, my name is Jim Powers with Michigan Parents for Compassion. You are watching Planet Green Trees. Planet Green Trees is the #1 podcast for marijuana and marijuana-related discussion in the state of Michigan. We've been at it for over a decade. There's no greater place to get your news, and there's no greater host in that we have attorney Michael Komorn, who you should absolutely call and contact for all of your legal needs. Planet Green Trees is the #1 marijuana show in the state of Michigan. Tune in to Planet Green Trees every Thursday at 8 p.m.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
All right, next topic. Welcome back. We are talking about everything that is Planet Green Trees. The topic of the day is, next topic is, should we consider getting a dog?
Adding
Or should
to
anyone
his
consider getting a
family.
dog?
Getting a dog?
No. It's
We're
not going to be.
thinking that it might be a nice little addition.
We're going to
for him.
discuss the.
You can take Layla for a night to see if it's going to be a fit.
If anyone should get a dog, let's do it that way.
Add a little chaos to the house.
Why
I think
do people get one?
a trial period is always a great idea to test people because the commitment, unlike kids, you can't really give them back after you get them. You know what I mean? But a dog, sometimes, you try it out, or you try a friend's dog for a little while and can kind of gauge the real.
Yeah.
But
it's not a bad idea to do that.
At the same time, though, you could think of it as kind of like a long-distance relationship in that instance. It's a lot of fun for the weekend.
Yeah.
But you're not living together every day.
Michael.
Like changes
your grandkids or your
They
niece
do
and
that.
nephews for the weekend.
Okay.
They have sleepovers. The Humane Society and stuff like that will offer sleepovers if anybody is looking
Sleepover.
to. Yeah, you can take one of those little dogs.
All
and take
kinds of
them home.
options for you, Michael.
I want to say I grew up with dogs my entire life. They were always part of my, and I.
He
I
was
have
always
fond
chasing them
memories-
around the neighborhood.
Fond memories of playing with them outside and chasing them down in the middle of winter when they would run away. I don't know.
yeah,
We had this one dog, this Dalmatian, that would run away. And
I would say I
insane.
love
But it's okay.
Dalmatians
It's okay.
instead.
It's all right. Each one of them had a story.
Michael, go get the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, your sister let the dog out. Go get him.
This is at a time where you can walk through people's backyards and not worry about anything. Just cut through looking for the dog. He's in someone else's yard. No one cares. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that.
Today you do that, you may get shot.
Right,
Yeah, you would
exactly.
probably get
exactly.
shot.
Prowling around in the back in the bushes looking for something that's over. You know what I mean? That's not
Right.
even a thing you can do.
No.
But all right, so I did grow up with dogs. I mean, if someone as opposed to
So you
cats,
know how to
as opposed
take care of
Yes,
them.
of course, they're very demanding, and what's ultimately going to happen is they want to be led. They want to have.
They do.
They want to have an owner that knows when they have to poop and when they want to eat and cares about that. And once you establish that, I've seen and know, I'm surrounded by dog owner lovers.
Yes, he is.
who I know spend a majority of their time and energy posting cute pictures of their dogs on
Yes.
Instagram and stuff. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
So it's your turn.
Hold on.
I'm thinking.
Hold on. But But and and if you develop this relationship, of course, it's the type of relationship that is, like a bond like no other, right? Like the dog doesn't complain when you get home. It's happy to see you and whatnot. It's always
Yeah.
Anyways, is there any cat lovers in our crew
Cat
here?
lovers in the house?
Dan, you kind of seem like you're a cat guy.
I like cats.
Okay.
They're not my go-to animal, but
We have a cat.
You have a cat?
We've had many. This is the fifth cat.
Is it the same cat? Is this the fifth life of the
No.
eighth life?
The four are gone. This was the kitten that showed up about a year after all of our animals finally passed.
If you don't like it, you just get rid of them. Is that what you're doing, or?
No. They
It's
were
the
all
exchange program.
They all got old. Michael.
I'm just
They
joking.
all
I'm
got
joking.
old.
Do they? Because I think isn't the? I mean, I don't really. I mean, I understand what a cute kitten and cat looks like, which is to be like a internet craze and whatnot. But there is a bonding amongst cat owners. I'm assuming of the.
Sure, there is.
The connection with the cat personality, whatever that may be. And there's like bonding of cat owners. So what is that cat personality? Is it Bizarro Land? Like they're just totally bizarre animals and they're like half still lion and tiger in
see,
their.
I like cats that are like almost like dogs, where you call them, they come to you, they want attention, they want to play.
There's not a lot of cats like
the
that.
ones that just hide in the corner in your basement. You just hear them at night or see them at night.
Cats are very independent animals.
Allie's talking about a dat. Like a dog cat. The cats don't do that.
Yes, they
Some
do.
cats do.
Yes, they do. I had a cat that was just like that. I mean, he'd come outside and walk around with me.
Okay,
and,
good.
My buddy could play fetch with his cat. Cat would bring back the ball to him.
At all times.
Come to his name. I mean,
I have a friend who has a cat. You call him, he comes, and he has like a little cat wheel, like almost like those gerbil wheels that you have for gerbils. He has like a cat wheel, and he gets on it and he runs on it for treats.
No kidding.
And he also plays fetch.
Oh, fun! Really
neat.
I understand
what are the naked cats called? Sphinx.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my uncle had years ago had one of those cats, the Sphinx. And instead of declawing, he got those little gel tips to put on her nails so she wouldn't scratch things.
Like the little caps that they put on their nails?
Yeah, it looked like she went and got her nails done. It would like
interesting.
be pink or red or different colors,
Oh, they were colored.
Yeah, they were colored like she had her nails painted.
Oh, no, he just takes his cat and just lays him down and just takes nail clippers and clips his nails.
Oh, okay.
So is it true? Does anyone have an experience or speak with any personal knowledge of the belief that cats can be toilet trained?
I have
They
seen
can,
them.
yes. I've seen it done. Yeah.
And I think actually my uncle trained, now that I'm thinking it through, my uncle trained his cat, his Sphinx cat with the tips, also trained her to use the facilities.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because that was one of his things. He just did not want the litter box.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's a negative.
Yes, that
Right?
was the negative. He did not want to deal with the litter box, and he
But you
didn't
can
want to
train
deal
them
with
to
the
use the
hair.
toilet.
Dog hair shed all over every piece of furniture or litter box. It's like one or the other, usually, right? Dog, cat, trade-off, right?
Yeah, my dog sheds a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the good thing about a cat is you can leave them enough food and
Yes.
water for
He sheds
several
a lot.
days, and you can leave the house, and they're going to be just fine.
That's the one thing about cats.
They use the litter box, and when
They're
you get home, you clean the litter box, and you can leave a cat for probably a week, I would think. and
Okay,
it's gonna
okay.
be
Are you implying also that they have no memory or the building up of hatred towards their owner for doing that to them?
No, they're so independent. They don't care.
They don't care. They never have. No.
None of them?
No, they don't care.
What, do they have no memory?
They have a memory, but
They're
they
just so
Do they have a
independent.
memory?
They
Do
don't
they have a memory?
I just
They
don't
don't
think
need
they
people.
like us that much.
Do they have a memory?
I think
Yeah,
you're right.
some of them
Jim.
enjoy the time off.
That's right.
They probably
Jamie, are
do.
you a cat person? Do you like cats?
I do like cats, but have not had one in many, many years.
I've had one cat in life.
They are allergic to many, to some.
Yes.
Yeah,
to me.
that's true.
Yeah,
There are some
my
that
son is allergic to cats.
You can order these cats though, that are hyperallergenic.
Yeah, the naked cat.
Synthetic. You can have them synthetically bred, right?
Those Sphinx, those naked cats.
Is that the only one? Is there any other one?
Cat, that's what I call them, naked
Oh,
cat.
no. For a good movie, if we go back to the old entertainment corner, the CEC.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The what were those movies with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller? Meet the Parents.
Oh, the Fockers.
That's a good example of how a cat uses the toilet.
Yeah.
That's what he
In
trained,
that
right,
movie.
Right.
Yep.
He trained, right.
But if you're looking for hypoallergenic
Yeah.
on the dog side,
Uh-huh.
there are a couple of dogs that are
The Labradoodles.
Yeah, yep.
The
Yep,
doodles
the
all are
poodles.
hyperallergenic.
Well,
There's a
those are also
couple breeds.
synthetically made, but like that's like a combination of a Labrador and a
poodle.
Okay, you also have
Very
the,
good demeanor,
The terriers,
those
the Wheaton Terriers, they were non-shedders. We had a lot of those. You know what I mean? And I think they're.
How many dogs did you have?
What was it that I had?
We had a lot of
We had Jaja, which was a poodle. That was like when I was first born, and we went to. Then we had, and there was a cat also I think at the time named Monkey or something like that. Then the next dog I remember was Scooby Doo, this Dalmatian, and then we had literally I don't know, maybe like 7 different soft-coated Wheaton Terriers. It was like 7, 8, 10 years. Bam, we got a new one. 7, 8, 10 years, you know. And they all had different person. One year we were hosting my cousin that went to school in Chicago, so we took on his cat. And this dog was already living in the house. I thought it was Charlie or Rocky or Matt. You know, I don't know. We had a bunch of different. Anyways, but what would happen was when the dog found out this cat was nuts, he would go crazy. So every morning, they would start their day. It was like the Roadrunner and the Coyote. They would start the day. They chase each other all over the house, and the dog would stand in the basement on some stuff, staring at the cat like the rafters of it all day, just all day. And then every now and then the cat would like be so hungry he'd have to like get out. It was like that was, and then that dog hunted cats in our neighborhood, like he'd been like this whole training and like living through this whole like. You know, like his routine of just like, you know, the moves and stuff. And he was just taking out cats everywhere. It's not funny. It's not funny.
And Coyote every day.
I mean, you know, the neighbors hate you. Like, taking your dog on a lead, you know. It's not even funny.
No, these
make
days
light
your
of
dog
it.
gets shot for that.
Yeah, I had it.
Right.
Yeah, we
And
had a dog that did that
That's why
before.
people are rioting in the streets.
They might.
Because they don't want their cats killed, Michael.
I'm advocating it. I'm not advocating that.
Officers shooting them in the face.
I'm not advocating, and it was I was just an interesting phenomenon of how something
I'm
works.
just giving you shit.
All right, but explain this to me if you would. What is catnip and how does it work?
I don't
It's
know.
basically
how it works. It's a
cannabis
plant.
for cats.
It's a plant. It does fuck them up.
Yeah.
Is it a plant or
Yeah,
some
it's
chemical?
a plant.
Okay.
And
What
boy,
does it affect the human system at all? Do you ever
No,
find
I
people
don't
that
think
are
it
cat
does.
owners?
I've never tried it.
Okay, why is that? You think like a cat?
Why haven't I tried it?
Well,
Because
not
it
you,
smells
but-
funny and I don't want to try
I mean,
it.
like a cat owner who's watching their cat,
Mhm.
you know, get their.
I'm sure somebody's tried it, and if it was a good thing, more people would do it. But it must
Maybe
not
it's a
be
secret
anything.
amongst cat owners.
Maybe.
Anyone have any experience about this, Ellen?
An underground catnip ring.
I don't have any experience with it, but I do know with the DQ tests that the cops do, I do know that it will test positive as marijuana.
Catnip does? It's
Yeah.
probably loaded with cannabinoids.
I wonder if they're spraying
I wonder. I think
The
there's
catnip is
probably
something.
there's probably cannabinoids in this natural plant that could be extracted and could probably like CB
something
11.5 or something. You
Yeah,
know?
probably.
They're both in the mint family, I believe. There's something about a connection with mint,
Yeah.
which would mean it's got a lot of active shit in it, you know.
But it won't get you high. So if anybody wants to try to get high, they're not going to get high from catnip.
Does it have any other
Mints.
Well, there would be no purpose then.
Just to clarify, the mint family also, they have square stems, so I think they're related to the mints, but I don't think they're in the mint family. The cannabis has its own family called the Cannabaceae, which also includes the stuff that you use to make beer. Hops is considered the same family.
Isn't
Interesting.
green beans in that family as well, I think?
Those are legumes.
I do like a green bean.
Mm-hmm.
Green bean
But green
casserole
beans do have
season's coming up.
cannabinoids, I do believe.
Lots of plants have cannabinoids.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can get CBD from orange peels.
Probably.
So you get terpenes from orange peels.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, hearing no debate, I'm going to assume that that's not challenged.
It's not debatable.
I'm not challenging.
That's
it.
not a, yep.
It's not debatable. So when is the debate coming up?
What debate?
Soon?
Is it going to be?
Well, we're thinking about doing a PGT watch party of the debates, at least one of
Oh,
them.
that'd be fun. That'd be fun.
With Jim and I doing commentary like we're the two old dudes on the Muppets.
That'll
That's
be
funny.
good.
That's a funny bit.
Do we get a balcony?
Yes. Tommy will set it up.
No, Tommy's got to be dressed as Animal pinging on the drums in the background or something. Right?
Yep.
As Animal?
Yeah.
The drummer in the Muppets.
Yeah, I know, but we could find somebody way better for that, and you know who.
Yes.
I know.
We'll see him tomorrow.
I know.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Recruit him.
All right, so the debates.
The debate.
We'll go along on
This
the
is
lines
real
with what
news.
we were talking about.
This is the real
earlier.
news with Esteban.
Real news.
So the 2020 United States presidential debates will be held Tuesday, September 29th,
Ooh.
Thursday, October 15th, and Thursday, October 22nd.
Two Thursdays.
And the vice presidential debate will be held Wednesday, October the 7th. I'm not really that thrilled about that one. I can't wait for Trump versus Sloppy Joe. It's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. How about you?
Someone
Jim?
read the disclaimer real quick, just to make sure we're not offend anybody. The opinions and comments expressed in the show by hosts, guests, commentators, posts, articles, etc., may or may not represent the actual opinions or thoughts of Komorn Law Firm or its associates. The thoughts and conversations that occurred during the broadcast are an attempt to bring humor and parody to an otherwise this should really read fun.
Non-comical
or happy
scenario.
world.
Yeah.
It says okay. Although some conversations against me state facts, academic impedimenta, okay, and scientific theorems, one should consult an attorney or expert before considering.
What was that word?
That sounds like a Dirty Dan statement to me.
Impedimenta. Yeah, it kind of flows off
Did Dirty Dan come up with that?
I think it might have been a Dirty Dan special.
No, I think it might have been. I will say that I very much view the presidential races or race this year as a non-comical scenario.
Non-comical?
No, I mean there's comical aspects of it, but I feel like we got dealt a real shit sandwich this year.
Yeah, we're gonna be eating a pretty big shit sandwich.
Yep. No matter what happens.
Yeah.
Not great.
Well, you know.
You guys remember George Bush?
We can always
Listen, can I
do
just
a
say
write-in.
something to you all?
George Bush #1.
Listen,
George
it's only because
Bush.
you're thinking, and you care does this become a burden. There's a much easier way to go about this.
What, just not
Just
care?
don't do it.
Just
don't
not care?
Just do what everybody else does.
Yeah. What's that?
What?
Whatever.
Just keep
they say.
going. Keep going with life.
I do care.
All that
It's
political
important.
shit is.
No, I'm saying it's
noise.
difficult.
It's nonsense.
Because ignorance is bliss in a way. That's what I mean. You know, it's
Yeah.
Yep.
I
It's
used
like
to be
it's,
happier before I
Before he
was
started doing
politics
all
makes-
this.
politics.
Yeah,
Yes.
politics makes people miserable,
It
and,
does.
and it causes enemies and
My
and
goodness.
and fights at Thanksgiving dinner. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and when you look back on it after the fact, like it's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Seriously, like things that just I don't know.
The one good thing is
The
there
reality
has
is that-
not been this many people engaged in politics since as far as I can remember. I mean, there is a lot of people engaged right now. There's going to be a lot of people voting. For whatever reason that is, for whichever side you're on, I think it's good. Yes, everybody should be engaged, should be looking at things a little bit. Get to the polls and vote. or go sign up for your absentee ballot. Participate in the system. That's all we can do. I don't care what anybody votes, to be honest with you. I know what I'm going to vote, and that's me, and that's what I feel good about. And I think everybody else should get out there and do the same, no matter who you like, no matter what you're thinking. You don't have to share it with anybody. Vote your conscience. Just get out there, participate, and vote. And I think we got a lot of people engaged right now, and however you look at things right now in the state of our world, at least people are starting to look and pay attention a little bit and hopefully getting out and vote. And you know what? At the end of the day, whoever gets the most votes based on our system, and for the president, it'll be electoral. For everybody else, it's however those votes go. But all as we can do as people is go out and vote. Participate.
Yeah, there you go. Very well said. Very neutral. More neutral than most times.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
fine. I was going to say...
But no, I respect everybody's opinion to go do what they feel.
Yeah.
I mean, if you vote how you... Everybody should vote how they want to vote.
But the more politics that people talk, the more divisive people become. And it's kind of a two-edged sword. Like the engagement that more people seem to have eliminated the conversation about politics that people used to have. You see what I'm saying? Like there's such a divide in...
Oh, right. It's
so divided. But so you have more people, arguably, engaged, not willing to talk or discuss anything, which is terrible.
Well, why do we have to have non-discussion? Let's discuss things with each other, but be respectful of each other. When we talk, respectful and polite, and maybe if we just spoke to each other in that way, we could disagree on things and walk away from that conversation and think, you know what, Jim and I didn't agree on that, but we're okay. It's fine. Why can't people do that?
I agree, and that's always the attempt. I mean, I think even the worst of governments and the worst of conflicted institutional, interactions where you got government and people, and there's always the desire to keep open the line of communication and diplomacy. You know what I mean? That should always be. I mean, always having a back channel of communication if necessary, if things get sideways. But the more information that is, the because of information that is so running rampant, there's so much more of it and so much divisiveness in the way that the type of information you have. A lot. I think it's created a lot of polarization. That's the only way to say it. So polarization does not lend itself to middle grounding. I'm not saying this is good or bad, and I do think. When you're talking about politics, it is all about compromise, whether you like it or not. Why isn't it exact? And in a way, sometimes that's good. Sometimes people say that's good. Sometimes the stalemated government is good because there's not too much change. Some people hate that because change happens not fast enough. And we're always on that balance of evolution of our government, right? It's experiments been taking place for a couple hundred years. So far, so good, right?
Well, there's a few things out there that really need to change, such as marijuana legalization and removing it from the controlled substances list. That's not moving too fast in legislature. Nobody wants to do anything with executive orders. It's a stalemated issue that's slowly, but there's no reason for it to be illegal. But it's like, well, we've had it illegal this long. We can't admit that we've been wrong about it all these years. So I guess we just continue to fight them on it a little bit at a time. And then it drags out for 20 years before we finally get real legalization with this plant.
I mean, you could say that, and I don't know if this is probably a really divisive topic in and of itself, but like healthcare currently right now, we had the Affordable Care Act or the Obamacare, and Some people liked it, some people didn't like it, right? But
there was some good things in it, such as, like, I was able to carry my daughter on my health insurance until she was 26 without her being a full-time student. That was a good change. That was probably, for my family, that had the most impact from the Affordable
There were lots
Care
of good
Act.
changes.
I think it brought more potential of people to be covered by insurance, but it increased costs
It did.
in other areas.
But I mean, the problem there is, like it or not, until the government steps in and controls what some of these companies are charging, and
Well, there
that
you
goes
go.
all the way down to the providers,
And,
right?
and specifically pharmaceutical
Yep,
costs.
absolutely.
All right, but this is the point I was trying to make here. But since the new administration's come in and vowed to, at some point, I think, move pre-existing conditions as being covered, and I know there was a debate the other night that
That's a huge problem.
Okay, but if I'm not mistaken, he has not been able to repeal Obamacare, right? So there's been a stalemate in that regard. Some people may say that's good, some people may say it's bad. I don't know what would have been, the agreement to actually pass some legislation, but that's a scenario where I'm just saying an opposite. For some, for some people, if his vision of whatever that repeal, I think it almost became an issue of symbolism to the Republicans. Obama essentially radicalized the healthcare system to a certain degree. He's got his name all over it. They call it Obamacare.
That
right?
was probably the only thing he really did. in
Okay,
office.
I'm not even okay. Whatever. I'm just saying, but that is the thing we can all agree occurred. And I think to the Republicans, it was for some reason a stain for them. And
Yeah.
in a rally call, it was one of the we're going to repeal Obamacare. So and I don't know what that would have looked like. I don't know who it would have impacted, good, bad, or others. I'm not commenting about it, but I'm just saying that's an example of stalemated government. He wasn't able to do it. It remained. Some pieces of it may have been found.
Too many voters depend on it. He will never. It would be political suicide for him to actually repeal that law.
Because it's a Republican issue as well. It's beyond any more the belief that it is not.
Right. I mean, everybody needs health care, and at the end of the day, we've got so much more work to do. I mean,
But it's not a top priority for him.
no, it's not.
It's not being discussed.
But we know what his priority is.
Okay,
and
but
his
I'm saying
priority is to get reelected.
I got that.
And
but,
to be liked. And
okay, it's fine. And I didn't mean to go down the road, but I was really just saying as examples of stalemate, good or bad. I think that it's a fair statement. Sometimes it doesn't move fast enough. Some people are pissed that it didn't move fast enough, that it didn't take on his vision of whatever healthcare could be. Some people are happy that we have a Democratic government, that they need a certain amount of votes, and constituents in different towns and states would never have allowed their representative to come back and win another election. You know what I mean? It had an impact. So I'm just suggesting to you. I mean, I don't think that a government in general is able to exist for 200 plus years unless you have checks and balances, and a gotta be careful how this is, but that there's checks and balances and some.
But the problem with our system right now is that it's so inefficient, which can be good for government, but technology is just moving at such a rapid pace and rate now, and the extent of the information and content out there that's flowing at people, and the way that technology and things can just get done so much faster, and our government is incapable of keeping up with it.
They have all that technology. They're just using it to track their citizens, which is the problem. They could use the same energy to be developing it and working with it for some probably much
I'm saying
more
that
just
the government
reason.
really is just going to become, I don't know what to say it.
I'm not suggesting that the government's good or bad. And
No,
their
I'm not
inability
even trying to.
act.
I'm just saying they're going to be
but the principles
inconsequential.
Well,
because technology is just blasting forward, and it's leaving government in the dust.
In a way, our
But
government.
that's just reality.
Okay, but in
That's
a
just
way, our
what's happening.
government structure lends itself to potentially allow that to happen anyways. And think about all the other times in history where there's an economic revolution of some kind. Call this a technological revolution. We had the Industrial Revolution, had different families that were dominating, the railroad, the industry. You got the oil barons and whatnot in the United States, and the way our system was built would allow for a few groups of people to completely, collaborate with one another and, what would be considered now antitrust violations and completely dominate a market in a way that would just eliminate everybody else and continue, so our capitalist system would allow that, but we had Teddy Roosevelt and, the antitrust, busting and whatnot. And now we have something that's supposed to prevent that from happening. I'm just saying, our economy, as it's built, allows for the technology people to function and flow and use their technology and have a marketplace to sell it to. But it wouldn't happen if we were a totalitarian government. It wouldn't happen if it was the creativity and the ability to function, evolve, and be free with thoughts and share and contract and all this stuff in a private industry is because our government is what it is in a way, and it's different than any other civilized. It's a creation unto its own in a way, and it's a phenomena that you don't see in any kind of other shared government, governance principles. Anyone to dispute
the government also is taking very extensive use of technology, at least on criminal cases. I was just reviewing a criminal case where they did something called a geofence warrant. Never heard of something like that, but it was a search warrant to a cell phone provider with a specific GPS coordinate saying we want to know every single cell phone, what do they call it, the TDS number, the IDN number, I think, or whatever. But they wanted the identity of every cell phone that had been within specific GPS coordinates at a specific time. And then from that, they went and narrowed it down and got communications from those phones during that time to see if any of these people might be a suspect in a certain crime.
That's what I'm saying. They are using the technology, but they're just using it against their citizens to track them. So they are using it. But Steve's point is that many of the functions, well, other than, if we're talking about, if we're talking about regulating the economy is one thing that the government purports to do. The Commerce Clause is part of their mandate. But there's always a variable of how much, right? How much regulations, how much, and, we swing back and forth, and that is certainly tied to the free flow of economy, but it's also tied to a lot of, public disasters in a way. Like the downside of not having enough regulations, like, that bridge had not been, inspected in 40 years.
The dam,
whatever it is.
Friggin' washed out the entire South.
Right.
Whoops.
Like, so there's a fine line there, right?
Right.
We have,
You are right.
here come those damn EPA inspectors, right? Meanwhile, 10 years later, like all the water's fucking poisoned and fish are dying and, everyone's got cancer and shit. That's the, But, and trust me, I'm not this is not a pro-government position I'm taking. I'm just saying that, and the problem is that
There was a good movie came out.
No one's concerned about these things anymore that I'm talking about. We've become so divisive, even in politics, that it's just party position, and that's the most offensive. There used to be some sense of civility. A hero in government was somebody that would go to their worst enemy and at least make the attempt to persuade them, right? Because they know at the end of the day it is always slimy and it's always a settlement, and they may be needed at the end for something else that they would normally never vote for. You know what I mean? And that is not a way in which it's not governance by victory. It's governance by settlement. Jeff, is Jeff still there? What am I trying to say, Jeff? Is there something? Go ahead.
I was going to say, people who like hot dogs and who find the law interesting should not watch either being made.
Okay. Jeff, we've heard that before. That's your best joke, maybe overused. Jeff, what do you say about this? Whatever. Any comments on my thought? This discussion we're having here about the good and the bad of the American system.
Yeah, it's a circus, and you should vote. That's your ticket to the circus. It's free. But let's not be fooled. This is bread and circuses, man. They keep us fed and they keep us entertained. We need to keep our eye on the prize and focus on the victories we can win.
All right, but it's a good government. the freedoms and whatnot that, I mean, it's a good government structure. The people that are running it are different, but the principles are you know, the opportunity and the civility that would go along with it is always a balance that's set forth, and we have ebbed and flowed, more ebbing than flowing, I guess, in terms of capitalization, you know.
Well, there's you know, all you need to focus on something that you agree on, right? I mean, we may agree on shit tons of things, but we may disagree on a bunch of stuff. But if you can focus on the one that you agree on, I mean, then you have something to talk about at least. I mean, here's a for instance. Is there anything that we agree with Pam about?
I don't think so.
Well, so much for that.
I think we agree. I think we would all agree about this, Jeff, that they are a non-profit registered entity and they are not considered a government agency for purposes of lawsuits. Would they agree with that, do you think?
Correct. No immunity. That's the deep state. That's where it is, man.
Steve's point was that once technology kicks in, all the institutions of our government
become obsolete.
That technology, I mean, that technology will actually overrun government functions or needs for
police function.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If there's one thing the government does, it's they police or purport to police and keep the. I mean, I don't even know.
The AI is going to do all the policing on the internet before too long, if it's not already mostly.
What was that movie with Tom Cruise and the
Minority Report?
Yeah,
that's pretty weird.
We may
it?
go to that. Were those things that like could predict what was happening?
Those
in
are
the future?
like those triplets.
The future
those
crime
girls.
vision that happens. That you know, like the anticipatory search warrants and you know the well, Komorn. You know how it is. On the surface, it looks like they're in compliance, but once I get in there, I'll see the crime. I can almost see it from here.
The investigative detainments and whatnot.
Preemptive arrests.
Right.
Yeah, they can see that in the future.
They were just about to do something, then I got them.
And we've let them get away with it all these years. You haven't. You've fought them. But the majority, 99.5% of the rest of everybody else have just let them get away with it all these years.
Listen, I would be mindful to reread the disclaimer again about some of the comments here, but just this is the fact of reality that we all find ourselves in, or that you've all been dragged into by listening to Planet Green Trees tonight, which is, it is 2020. Today's date
and
is...
marijuana is not really legal.
17th of September, today, 2020. In 2018, they legalized marijuana in the state of Michigan, and I'm involved with a case from 2013. 2013. And the county of St. Clair is fighting this case like it is a first-degree murder case.
It is the case of their life.
So people may not care. I don't know, you know. But listen. So there's it calls for some attempts at levity, and I'm just making excuses for why we're trying to make fun of this insanity tonight because it really makes no sense. At the same time, we bitch and moan Jamie Lowell. I think Jamie is completely. I don't think he's given up. I think Jamie is trying to be diplomatic as he embraces the green bowl of Lansing that he's existing in right now, and he's going to lobby hard to make sure that the tsunami that awaits us does not reach the shore. Jamie's going to be standing there blocking it. He can absorb that big tsunami, right, Jamie?
Yeah, hopefully we'll not be alone, but yes.
Well, the MMA is certainly his voice needs to be heard at the table as well. We should revisit some of those conversations. All right, everyone had enough? I don't know.
Yeah, we got an early day tomorrow.
We're shutting her down.
Yep.
Oh yeah, right.
We got early tomorrow.
Felony marijuana case.
Yeah.
Warrant issued 2 weeks ago.
Balonius.
Seriously. Okay.
Not possible.
We'll
Still
tune into
going
Planet
on.
Green Trees for more next week.
Not really legal.
Not really legal.
Where you'll find out that marijuana.
the Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the very strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which ended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally, and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.